and gain back her energy. Yeah, so she won't be joining us.
Sorry to hear. Yeah, let us wish her a quick recovery.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we just wait for Michael to start OBS, and then once he gives us the signal, then we can start. But as we wait for him to give us that confirmation, yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone who has joined us for this session. Sadat, kindly help update that slide to Uganda. We love Sudan, but we'd love to see the word Uganda on the slide.
Oh no!
But yeah, yes, yeah. So this is a Wikidata session. So if you are new to Wikidata, you are most welcome. It's a beginner's session. We hope it is the first one, but then yeah, we'll get also more advanced sessions. And yeah, this session is being facilitated with Wikimedia German. So thank you so much, Sadat, for making this happen, as well as Zita, who is not able to make it. Yeah, I can see the number here is 40 now. I don't know if it's also counting the AIs. I saw so many AIs joining the session, but yeah, thanks so much everyone who is able to join. Yeah, feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know which part of Uganda you are joining from. I've had some people joining from Apache, from Kampala, from Gulu. So yes, so that we have the whole of Uganda represented here. It's not only Kampala, but yeah, yeah. I think we are going to kick it off. I'm going to be here for only 1 hour, but my colleagues will be here till the end of the session. I have another call along the way, but Michael Kalba will be here in case you need anything technically from our side. Yeah, so I think without further ado, yeah, over to you, Sadat, to yeah.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, and everyone, Michael, everyone in the call. It's really nice to see so many people on one call. I think I haven't seen this in a very long time, so I'm really excited about it. Um, for people who may have bandwidth issues, I think it's fine if you want to turn off your camera. And I so this session would be 3 hours. I know it's very long, but I can promise you that it's going to be exciting. And I would love for you to really interrupt me and ask questions, or just a comment. So if anything is on your mind, you can use the chat, or you can just unmute yourself, which is totally fine. um would would have some breaks in between, so you wouldn't be sitting for 3 hours. And before we start, I would like to just have everyone type into the chat a number between 1 and 10 about how exposed, or what is their experience with Wikidata. So 0 being, I've never heard about Wikidata in my life before. And 10 being, yeah, I can, write some sparkle queries. I know my way around. Yeah. So let's see where everyone is.
Between 1 and?
Between 1 and 10. Okay. Sandra says 1. Okay. Geoffrey Segawa says 2. Samuel says 1. Alio 6. Now I've lost track of the numbers. Okay. But I'm seeing some good numbers. I'm also seeing many beginners, which is awesome. I'm seeing some sevens as well. Probably, Jeffrey, you should be typing 9.5 or 10. um, Alexander. Okay, great. That's really good to know. It helps me sort of know how in depth I should go on some of the topics and when I need to speed up on some other topics. So this is going to be um, a whirlwind introduction to Wikidata. Um, I'm going to touch on so many different topics, which means we're not going to get the time to actually delve very deeply into each one of them. But this is meant to give you the overview of what exists and what is possible, so that after the session, if you speak amongst yourself and you feel that any of these areas that I've touched on is important to you, we can come back and have a specific, session on that one at some other point. So keep that in mind as we go through the slides. Um, yeah, so I'll start with a bit about Wikimedia Deutschland. I'm from Ghana. I'm not. um, I'm not from Germany, obviously, but I happen to be working with the Wikimedia chapter in Germany. So I moved from Ghana in 2021, just around the time of the pandemic, to actually join my colleagues here in Germany. And Wikimedia Deutschland is the oldest chapter after the Wikimedia Foundation. It was founded in 2004 by just 34 Wikipedians, and it was the first to be recognized, and it now has over 100,000 members. And it's now an NGO, fully established NGO with 200 staff, and there's a software development department within the organization that is about 60 plus staff, so people who are mainly responsible for the development of Wikidata and Wikibase. Wikibase we would touch on at the end of this workshop. So the goal of the software development team is to ensure that everyone has access to free knowledge, but especially in the form of structured data, that both humans and machines can read. So that is why our primary focus at Wikimedia Deutschland in the software development team is on Wikidata and Wikibase. And we have, a grand vision that aligns with that of the foundation, which is to empower people to be able to collect and share and organize data that shapes humanity's understanding of the world. So, what is Wikidata? And if I happen to be speaking too fast, just let me know also. So, Wikidata, especially for a lot of the folks who type one into the chat, Wikidata is one of, so we have Wikipedia, which is the online encyclopedia. And then there are sister projects of Wikipedia, and Wikidata is just one of them. I think there are about 10 or 12 more other wiki projects. And the goal of Wikidata is to collect structured data and have it organized in such a way that both humans and machines can read and pass this data. So we tend to think of Wikidata as a knowledge base instead of a database. So you would hear me use the word knowledge base, and I would explain later why we don't call Wikidata a database, but rather a knowledge base. I would explain that later in the slides. Wikidata is multilingual, which means for each item or for each entity, descriptions and labels can be added about that entity in various languages. And one of the important things is that Wikidata's data is CC0 licensed, which means that anyone can use the data, either for commercial purposes or for whatever. It's totally fine. And Wikidata is based on statements and references. I would explain a little bit on more of this later. Wikidata is 12 and a half years now. It was started in 2012. So, just to give you a bit of history, once upon a time when um, Wikipedia existed, and Wikipedia had so many language versions: so English, Luganda, Spanish, and so on and so forth. And if you had an article about Kampala on the English language Wikipedia, and there is an article in Luganda also about Kampala in the English language Wikipedia, and also in Spanish, in Arabic, and so on and so forth. Um, there would be a need to actually link these different language versions of of the article, so that people who are on the English language Wikipedia reading about Kampala can easily see a link that says this article also exists in Luganda, or also exists in Spanish, also exists in Arabic. So they can click on that link and then go and read about Kampala in Arabic. And for those of you who have been around long enough, you would remember that we used to do this manually. So you'd have to go into the article and use the wiki code and write the wiki map, and then actually do this connection to the various languages manually, which was a pain in the ass. um, so people had the idea that, okay, let's have a central repository, a central hub, whereby these different language versions of Wikipedia can be included there and then propagated into the rest of the articles in other languages, so that people don't need to go in and add them manually. So the initial goal of Wikidata was to solve the problem of site links. Once that was solved, Wikidata just kept evolving and expanding into so many other things. Then we started adding statements to them, and then we started adding qualifiers, and now Wikidata is so much more bigger than just handling the problem of site links. So that is the back history of how the project started. Um, this slide you are looking at here is a representation of the diversity of Wikidata items that have a geolocation statement. So as you can see, the bright areas here show us that Wikidata is well represented in terms of geography-related articles in certain parts of the world, like in the eastern part of the United States, all of Europe. Generally, in the global north, there's some good representation. And in the not so bright areas, you can easily see that so much more work is needed to be done. And so Wikidata's the goal is to give more people more access to more knowledge and to provide data for projects inside of the Wikimedia projects, like the solving the problem of site links, but also now outside of the Wikimedia project. So Wikidata isn't just relevant for the Wikimedia projects, but also everyone outside of the project can use it. And the goal ultimately is to be this hub for linked open data on the internet. Okay, so Wikidata can be used outside of the Wikimedia project. It can also be used inside the Wikimedia project. What are some of the ways that Wikidata can support your local wiki project? Here is an example of an info box in the Dagbani Wikipedia that was generated entirely from Wikidata. So if you are familiar with info boxes on articles, editing them is very difficult and very painful. So if there's a way to actually just generate these info boxes in the Luganda Wikipedia, for example, that would be awesome. And how do they do this? This is done by simply including a template. Of course, there's a need for an admin on the Luganda Wikipedia to be able to install some modules, and sometimes some configurations would need to be done, but it's pretty simple. If you are interested in this, I can show you later how that is done. But once that configuration is done, people need only to include a template bio inside the article, and then it generates this entire info box. So that is one possibility. And the info box was only made possible because an item about this entity existed on Wikidata. So that is how come I was able to pull all that information and create it nicely on the article. Another use case for Wikidata is use case for Wikidata in your local project is to embed Wikidata's data into pages. The screen seems small, right? Let me try and zoom in. Hopefully this would do. Is it too large now or too, or it's okay?
I don't know if it's on my side, but it's not occupying the full screen on my side. It's like it has put participants like half of the screen, and half of the screen is your screen. I don't know if that's Google Meet trying to do that. Yeah, Sandra has just confirmed that it is the same for her. So maybe you can stop presenting and then you maybe.
And then do it again, right? Okay, let's try it. Let's try that. Okay, let's see. Uh, okay, let me try presenting again. Allow application window.
Yeah, that is far much better. Now I can see your full screen.
Okay, great. And how about if I switch the slides? Are you able to see it moving? Let's try that.
I'm moving the slides now because they're not moving
Okay.
if you're. We are seeing example views on Wikipedia.
Okay.
No, they're not transitioning. They're not transitioning. We're still seeing the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think
It's
maybe
still
need
not
to.
transitioning.
Okay, now it has transitioned. We're seeing 116 million data items.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Nice. Okay. So let's see what are some other use cases for Wikidata in that can be useful for you in your local language, Wikipedia or Wikisource or some other project. Um, you can embed Wikidata's data into pages on other wikis. So by making use of a magic function that takes values, property, and an item. So for this example, and I'm going to read what is on the screen. Since Accra is item Q3761 in Wikidata, and since population is property P1082 in Wikidata, I can tell you that the population of Accra is 1.7 million people. And this population value was picked or generated from Wikidata. And I'll tell you why this is important. Now, the population of Accra changes, right? There's a population census almost every 4 years in Ghana. And so if the population of Accra changes, we would need to have the editors in the local language Wikipedias or in all of the projects that have an article about Accra as an entity and the population value there. They would have to manually go in and then change this value every time there's a new population census. But if that can be changed on Wikidata and propagated into the Wikipedias and other pages that are referencing it, then it's going to save the editors a lot of time. So one way is simply to embed these magic functions around statistics or about names of ministers or politicians that could potentially change, and simply have Wikidata do that work for you, so you don't have to continuously have to update them anytime there's a change. And this was achieved by simply invoking this magic function where you say, okay, I'm looking for this property, population, and for which item, the item I'm interested in is Accra. And once we embed this into an article, then it's going to generate the population of Accra as a value. And people reading it would have no idea that that this is coming from Wikidata. Um, and again, this was possible because Accra existed as an item on Wikidata, and there was a statement in Accra that says that the population of Accra is some value and was able to use this value. Okay, a third use case for Wikidata in your local project is generating work lists for your campaigns or projects. So this table you are looking at here is was a project that was done in Ghana a couple of years ago, where we were trying to organize all of the content around the Ghanaian parliamentarians, so that people could work on them, people could work on their Wikipedia articles, people could work on their Wikidata entries. And this table was generated entirely using um, a bot called Listeria bot, and it takes arguments as Sparkle query, and then the Sparkle query is simply translated onto any page that you want this list to be created on. And then the Listeria bot takes care of updating it and making sure that um, any new entries that have been changed get reflected on that page. Um, Let's look at the anatomy of a Wikidata item. So on any Wikidata item, you would first come across the term box. And even before the term box, you would see the label of the item in whatever language that you are viewing it in. So you have the label and the QID, which is the unique identifier for that item. And then there's the term box that has the language and the labels and the descriptions and the aliases in it, and which means that for this entity Maya Angelou, they have a label in German, in English, in so many other languages, and descriptions, which is simply a short sentence that is giving people like a brief understanding of what this entity is all about. And then there's the also known as, which is the aliases, which could be other um, names that this person could have or could be referred to. So when people are online and are searching for this entity, they could be using so many string combinations. So the aliases are a great place to include any possible combination of strings that this person could be known as, so that people can find them on the internet. So The anatomy is simply, like an outline of what a Wikidata page looks like. Yeah, anatomy. Okay, now Wikidata is based on a triple structure. You would hear this also quite often. It simply means that we have an item with a QID. The item would have statements, and each statement has a value. So the item property value, which makes up the statement, is what we refer to as the triple structure of Wikidata. So in this case, we have a QID that has a statement, which includes a property and a value. And we have qualifiers. Qualifiers are, in simple terms, sub-statements that add more meaning to a main statement. So in this case, we have a qualifier that tells us more about the award that this person received at some point in time in 1998. So this award we are referring to is the National Women's Hall of Fame, right? And the qualifier is, giving us more meaning or giving us more insight as to what this statement, National Women's Hall of Fame, is about, and in which point of time this award was given to her, to Maya Angelou. Um, as you can see, items can be linked to other items. Hence, we use the term knowledge graph rather than a database, because a database is flat. It has two dimensions. But with Wikidata, you can click on a value in an item under a statement. That takes you to a whole new item on its own. So in this case, my Angelu as this QID, an item on its own. You can actually click on the value being the award that they received. And this National Women's Hall of Fame award is its entire, and it's like its entire item, its own thing with its own statement, its own values. So that is why we call Wikidata a knowledge base, because you can keep hopping from one statement, sorry, from one item to the other, and not as a database. Okay, so now that we have cleared all of these, just to give you a summary again, every item has a random and a unique QID. So that means if I create an item now with a QID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the next item that someone creates would automatically take the QID 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and so on and so forth. Items are linked to other items and hence linked data. And with that, let's see if there are any comments in the chat. Okay, none at the moment. Let's talk about the Wikidata community. Okay, the Wikidata community, it's an amazing one. It is very big, very diverse, very different from the communities in any of the Wikimedia projects. Um, it it looks great, but it has its own unique challenges. One of them being it's not as diverse as we would want it to be, first of all. And to understand the Wikidata community, we try to categorize the community, so that we can make sense of who and what these people are. And one of the degrees of categorization is, more Ugandans need to be there. One of the degrees of categorization is to group the community based on their level of activity. So we have a group that we commonly refer to as the core Wikidata community, the core community. These are the most active, the most dedicated contributors who are actively participating and They are creating content, they are expanding on existing content, they are maintaining and cleaning up content on Wikidata. They are often organizing activities for other community members. They are out there evangelizing Wikidata to the outside world, and they are also involved in the discussions that are shaping how the data on Wikidata gets modeled. And what is interesting is that the core Wikidata community is um, obviously it's very concentrated in North America and Western Europe, and that brings us to the difficult question of how can we make this community more diverse, encapsulating so many other different people from other parts of the world. Um, and one way to achieve this is to holding conversations like these with people from everywhere, particularly in Africa, which is an area where the level of activity is yet to peak, as we've seen. Um, in Europe, many of the editors have sort of, you know, grown old. So you would find that people who are involved in the projects in Germany, for example, tend to be old people who are nearing their time of retirement, or people who have retired and are looking for things to do. So we are clearly reaching a peaking point for the growth of the communities in Western Europe, but we haven't seen that same effect happen in Africa, particularly. Um, so back to the core community, as I said, these are the people who are creating most of the content, and they are maintaining it and making all the decisions on Wikidata. They are making the decisions on Wikidata because they are those who are involved on the project chat and discussing the data modeling. Um, just to give you an estimate, when we refer to as when we talk about a core community, we are talking about 300, an estimated 300 people. So that tells a lot. Um, they come from very specific areas of the world, and they are about 87% male. About 76% of them are from the global north, and they have between 1,000 and 100,000 edits each. So this is a clear representation of what I'm talking about the diversity of where these people are. Okay, there are any questions in the chat? No. Yeah, so many white folks. Yeah. So we have very large growth spurts in Wikidata. Wikidata is constantly growing, although we are not seeing a corresponding growth, from large parts of the African continent. One thing I wanted to mention to you about some characteristics of these core community members, which might be interesting to you to know, so that you can begin to look out for people who might have these characteristics in your local community, and try to help them to grow. So we have done a couple of surveys, and we learned that common traits that run amongst these group of very active contributors are that they inherently enjoy organizing, structuring, and connecting data. They enjoy bringing order to the chaos of unstructured world. They understand that data powers much of our day-to-day life. They are generally tech savvy, and they are very open to new technologies. They are often tickled by discovering that someone is using their data for something new and unexpected. So they go like, "Oh, this is really cool that someone is using some edit I made on Wikidata to develop a website that shows some interesting thing. Um, and we can safely assume that they are often perfectionists and they enjoy, completion, precision, and transparency. They like to get things right and organize things in their small little worlds. Um, and yeah, these are some of the characteristics that we tend to look out for. For like for people who would potentially grow to become dedicated community members. So I mentioned this because um, we have this funnel process of trying to recruit people. So we do, you know, can have an editor somewhere and try to introduce people to Wikidata. You bring in 1,000 people and hoping that a couple of them would stick around or become interested in what you are talking to them about. And the funnel keeps getting thinner and thinner. And in the end, you could have probably a dozen people who might end up, joining the community and participating in the project, which is awesome. We would like to see more of this. But you'd agree with me also that it takes a lot of work to actually engage 1,000 people if only 12 of them are actually going to come out at the end of the tunnel. So one way to look at this is to try and identify these traits, just to become more efficient in how we recruit people and who we talk to and who we try to bring into the community, so that it makes our work and your work a little easier. Because community building is extremely difficult. So if there are ways to make that a little bit more efficient, that is always great. I'm going to spotlight a few of these, hardcore community members. You might have seen them around. There's Harmonia. I won't go too much into what they do, but they are quite active. They have about close to 4 million edits. Um, there's Sean Samuel from India, close to 6 million edits. There's Jan Ainali, who's been editing since day one, quite active on Telegram, literally quite active everywhere. There is Sandra Falconia, who is also very active on Wikidata, Wikimedia Commons. Some of you might have come across her. She's doing so much around museums, and it's just really awesome, the kind of work that she does for the Wikidata projects. Um, there's John Frederick. There is a lot of them. Yeah. So as you can see, we are really missing voices from the global south, not just editorship, but also in content. So we don't know how to fix this problem. um, so we are always open to having more discussions with communities like yours to see, okay, what are some of the ways that we can do to solve this representation issue. Okay, one thing I'd like to tell you about the communities, wiki projects. Wiki projects are one area on Wikidata that brings editors, together in order to focus attention on topics that they really care about. So this is where editors come together and they go like, okay, let's focus our attention on this topic. Let's focus our attention on roads in Kampala and make sure that all of the roads in Kampala are well covered on Wikidata. So they also often provide documentation about how to model roads in Kampala on Wikidata, because the process might be different from how roads are modeled from Germany or from Ghana, for example. So these are some of the things that wiki projects are involved in. And there are so many wiki projects out there. There are plenty of wiki projects to choose from, and anyone can start a wiki project. and ask other people to join. Interestingly, one of the very active wiki projects of any African country I've seen is that of Uganda, which I was really excited about. There's a lot going on. More about it. There's the project chat, which is more like the village pump for Wikidata, and people can go there and ask questions. There's the there's the mailing list. There's the Wikidata mailing list and the Wikidata Tech mailing list. There is the Wikidata Weekly Summary, which is a newsletter that I send out with the help of some volunteers. And the Weekly Summary sort of summarizes all that has happened around Wikidata on a weekly basis. And you can sign up also to some of the social media channels. And we are moving away from Twitter, obviously, because of you know who. But we are on Mastodon, and we have some presence on Facebook as well. Um, Sabagala is proposing wiki project Adam and Eve evolution. Does this actually exist? Let me check. Maybe it does. Uh, okay, it probably doesn't, right? Maybe someone can start that. That would be nice. Okay, are there any questions before we move on? Sandra is saying, I would love to see that Project Salango. Project Salango. Okay. Yeah, we only know Ken and Abel. Okay, let's see. How do we make edits on Wikidata? Um, you are still able to see my screen, right?
Correct.
And if I switch to a new tab, are you able to still see that the tab has switched?
Yes, yes, we can see the you changing to new tab. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, how do we make edits on Wikidata? Oops, I should log out and use my um, login with this. Keep me logged in, please. Ah, I need to get my phone. ah, let's see if I can do it without getting my phone. Sorry, I should have done this earlier. Uh, okay. And I copy this. This should work. Perfect. All right. So, how do you make edits on Wikidata? Let's use the slice. Actually, it's not that bad. So, the easiest way to sorry, yeah. So a typical Wikidata item looks like this, and you can edit by simply clicking on the edit button. And as you can see, each item has a unique ID that is Q, and this one in particular has a Q ID, which is its unique reference, Q19526. And we talked about the term box on the left side of the top side of the screen, actually. Um, just below the term box, you will start to see the statement. So this item can have 1,001 statements. And one of the statements here that it has is an instance of. So the instance of is one of the fundamental statements on Wikidata. I think there are two or three others, but you would quite often see the instance of, which tells us immediately that this is a human. And there's another statement that tells us that, this human has an image, and you provide a link from Wikimedia Commons as a value for the statement, and the image gets shown here as a new statement. And then on the right side of the screen, you can see the site links. So the site links tell us that there is an entity with the same label in so many language Wikipedias. In the Azerbaijani Wikipedia and the English Wikipedia and the German Wikipedia and so on and so forth. So these are the four main, you know, call it loosely parts of a Wikidata page. Below the statement, you would encounter another kind of statement called external identifiers. So let's see. My Ankelu. So you would see here the external identifiers, so many of them. And oh my. Okay, so these external identifiers basically link this item to other catalogs that have an entry about Maya Engel. So you can simply hop on this database, like this National Library of Brazil database, go on there and see what they also have about Maya Angelou. It doesn't work. Someone needs to fix this. Let's try this. The National Library of Spain have an entry about Maya Angelou, hopefully. Yeah, it does. So like I said, Wikidata is aiming to be the central hub for linked open data on the internet. How do you create a new item? You create a new item by simply clicking on the create new item. Well, depending on the skin that you use, I think the new skin has this somewhere. I'm still trying to get used to the skin. I'm a dinosaur. I like old things. Okay, so this new skin here is actually under the main menu, and you can create a new item by clicking here. And once you do that, it takes you to this page where you can enter the language that you are trying to create the label in. Maybe in English, you can enter the label, the description, and the aliases, right? Um, Once you do that, so for this example, we have a label, Maltiti Tuk, who is a Ghanaian Ghanaian Australia soccer player, and you can include statements now, like, instance of and date of birth and place of birth and so on and so forth. Now, for people who are not necessarily comfortable to start creating items on Wikidata yet, you can use the Wikidata sandbox, which is an item on its own. And the Wikidata sandbox allows you to go in there and, simply add statements, even if they don't have sense, to an item, and add labels and descriptions. And no one is going to scream at you and say, hey, what are you doing? You can also use test.wikidata.org, which is another place that you can go in there and play around, and you don't have to worry about breaking anything. So I'd really encourage you to go there and give it a try. Now, this is what I just spoke about was the manual way of editing Wikidata. So it might interest you to know that the majority of edits that occur on Wikidata isn't done manually. It's done by tools. So these are standalone tools. These are bots that people build, tools of all kinds and varieties. And generally, these tools that are able to allow you make thousands of edits, bulk thousands of edits at a click of a button, we call them bulk editing tools or batch editing tools. One of the very popular ones is the Wikidata Quick Statements that was built by Magnus Mansky. And you can use this tool. You can use OpenRefine. There's a new version. Malona is saying repeats about the. Let's see. I should repeat again from how to start the sandbox. Okay. Yeah, so the sandbox is simply a page on Wikidata. I would share the link with you in the slide. And here you can actually go into the sandbox and you can make any edits you want. It need not make any sense at all. It's totally fine. It's more like the sandbox we are used to from Wikipedia, where you can go there and just play around. How did you get to the automated edits? Could you take me through the process of getting into this? Yes, so the automated edits, there are so many tools that you could use to make automated edits. One of them is Quick Statement. And if there's interest in actually delving into how to use any of these tools, we can organize a different session at some point after this. But I just want you to know that they exist and you can use them. So Quick Statement is one of them. There's OpenRefine. There are a whole plethora of tools out there. Yeah, so we won't go to the specifics of how to use Quick Statements today, maybe some other time, if you are interested in learning about it. Okay. What is notable or not notable on Wikidata? So you might have an idea about the notability policy already if you are coming from Wikipedia. And on Wikidata, an item is not notable if it cannot be verified through a reliable source. So it does not match or it does not meet the criteria for inclusion. Or so you need to have some verifiable results somewhere that points to this entity that shows how notable they are. Then you can include it on Wikidata. The good thing is the strictness of this policy is not as high as it is on the English Wikipedia. For those of you who edit the English Wikipedia, it's extremely high. So there's some leeway here. The notability policy is a bit flexible on Wikidata. But of course, you still need to make sure that this person is notable, just in case someone thinks that it doesn't. You should be able to prove that. And you can do that by including references. we'll talk about references later. Um, Ideally, the majority of the statements on Wikidata should be verifiable. So where possible, you should include a reference for the claim, for the claims that they add to Wikidata. One thing to also be careful about is when creating or working on items about living persons, because this is very sensitive, you need to be extra careful to include references for any controversial claim, and be prepared to justify their inclusion if needed. And of course, always assume good faith and try to present a neutral viewpoint on the contents that you include on Wikidata. There are a couple of links that you could look at about the policies around Wikidata. But if you are coming from Wikipedia, they are more or less practically the same. Okay. Let's look at how to query and make use of Wikidata's data. But before that, I think we should take a quick break and have people go and get some fresh air or use the washroom. So how about 5 or 10 minutes? What do you think, Jeffrey? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Mohammed. Add a quick question in the chat about automated edits. Are they the same as the bots?
Sorry, I missed this question. Douglas, I recognize your voice, but I don't see your image.
Yes, this is Douglas. Douglas Sevagala.
Okay. Right. So automated edits can be made by bots. So these are two different things. So bots are scripts that are written, generally run on some on Python, whereby this bot would have a username. It could have some privileges like admin privileges or not. And then simply this bot is instructed to make some repeated edits, maybe add references from English Wikipedia. So this is what a bot could potentially be doing. So the bot itself can be adding these references repeatedly at a very high frequency. So in some sense, the bot is also making automated edits. So it could be considered as an automated editing tool. But we tend to separate bots from the actual standalone tools, just to avoid confusing people. So the automated edits, although they include bots, they are generally understood to mean standalone tools like quick statements or open refine. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I'll try it further and I'll read through the slides when they're shared.
Awesome. I would also be sharing the slide after the call, so you would have access to it. Okay, so should we take a quick break and then come back? So let's come back at 2:10 thereabouts, 2:10 Uganda time. Okay, sounds good. Then I'll see you all in about 6 minutes.
Shut up. Yeah, it does. Come back. I'm waiting for this one. Upside down. Lazy. Yeah.
Okay, how is everyone doing? Great. See, people are back. Okay, so let's see how to make queries on Wikidata. Now, Wikidata has 106 million items and billions of statements. There should be an easy way to be able to ask complex questions of this knowledge base and get results back. So let's look at some of the ways that we can do that. There is the query builder. This was a tool that we built in 2020 thereabout. That gives us easy access to the query service. It has a simple GUI, graphic user interface, where you can simply just click and run through to get your queries. So let's do an example. But I think I should first show you the query service. Then you can see the difference between the query builder and the query service. So let's say that we wanted to make a query of someone give me something simple. Let's say Ugandan politicians who are female, and you need. So first of all, you need to go to the Wikidata. Any page on Wikidata, you can find the query service link here. If you click on the query service, this is the engine that allows you to write Sparkle code, and then the code should be able to give you some results after you run it. Um, so now there are tons of examples in the query builder, in the query service itself that you can use, and then simply adjust this if you don't know how to write Sparkle, which I don't know how to write Sparkle myself. My Sparkle queries almost never run all of the time. So I tend to use the simple tool within the query builder, within the query service itself, called the filter. And here I'm going to filter people whose country of citizenship is Uganda, because the goal is to get Ugandan female politicians. So we should start filtering people whose nationality is Uganda. So let's see, Uganda here, country in East Central Africa, but we are actually looking for country of citizenship, not the country. If we limit our query to just 100, it would give us just 100 results. If there are more, so we can limit this and say, okay, we want just 50 results. And then we can run this, and we would get some results of people who have a statement in an item that says that their country of citizenship is Uganda. Let's look at this example amongst the results. So this is Stephen Kiprotich, and if I scroll down, I should see this statement that has a property that says their country of citizenship is Uganda. And that is how come it was captured in the results of this query. Okay, let's filter some more, because we're not just interested in everyone from Uganda, we're interested in females, right? So let's filter females by typing female here. And still, let's restrict our results to 50 and see what we get. So here we have only females now. It now has just 50 females. And we can go on and say, okay, now we are interested in not just Ugandan citizens who are female, but also Ugandan citizens who are female and their occupation is politician. So let's see. Okay. If we run it, we actually get some results. Let's try one of them. Ethan Roda. If we look at the item, we would find that their country of citizenship is indeed Uganda, and their occupation is indeed politician. You can go ahead and show images if there exist, and we should have some image columns included here now that gives us images of these people, if there exist, of course. And you can share this query with someone who, so you could share it in several ways. One of them is to share this query as, just sharing the query. So they would be able to see this code here, and maybe they can make some changes to it. Let's say they want to only see the results as an image. You can do that by including this default value here, and then you only get the results as images. And you can share the code here, the Sparkle query here. You can choose to share only the results. And if you share the results, let's try that. Whoever clicks on the link doesn't get bothered with the code, they only see the results. You can embed this into an HTML frame. If you are building a website, for example, you simply copy this. You can also create, remember when we were talking about using Listeria to generate working list for your project? You can actually copy the Listeria code that can generate this query on a page by choosing this and then copying this and pasting it on your Wikipedia page. Then it gets updated whenever there's a new entry about a female Ugandan politician. So you can embed these results in so many places, in so many environments, as you can see here. Now, when the query starts to get complex, that is really when you would need help from the community or from someone who knows how to write Sparkle to make some changes to it. My recommendation is usually not to go directly to the query service if you want to write a query, but to actually use the query builder because it's so much more simple. So I would now show you how to use the query builder. It is linked in the query service here, or you can just search for it online. And the query builder looks like this. You would see it has a much simpler, less frightening interface. We can achieve the same task with this by entering the country of citizenship as a property. So we need to make a first condition first. Remember, the goal is to generate female politicians from Uganda. So the first condition could be the property is B27, country of citizenship. Okay. And it should match values that are Uganda. And if I run this, let's leave this at 100 as the limit, I should get some results. Yes. And then I'll come back and add the other conditions. But someone has a question, I believe. Okay, yes, Sandra, I can repeat the process again. Do you want to see the process for the query builder or the query service? I would recommend to actually start.
I think for both Mohammed, because we also have both the new editors and also experienced editors. So I think like just showing us where you're getting the Wikidata query builder and all that, and also for the previous one would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Before that, let me see if I can respond to these earlier questions. When creating a Wikidata item, there are basically two headings, statements, identifiers. Okay, you can call them headings, no problem. Adding statement is kind of automatic. How is a heading identifier added? Ah, okay, that's a good question. I've heard this one before. Let's look at this item about async Rhoda again. So when you add statements, these headers are generated or are shown to you automatically. You don't have to set them. So if you add a statement that is a regular statement, like their date of birth, it would automatically appear under statement. But if you add a statement that is, let's say, Google Scholar or Google Maps ID, it's simply a property you are adding and the value. If I went ahead and I added this and I publish, and the page is refreshed, it would show up under identifiers because this is an identifier. It's not a regular statement. So you don't have to worry about where to place your statements. They will automatically be done for you. Identifiers would be placed at where identifiers are, and regular statements would be placed under where the regular statements are. The other question was coding again. Okay, so I think this has to do with Sandra's question. Malona is saying how to add an image on Wikidata. Please, I need help from someone. Yes, we can add an image to Wikidata. It's not difficult. Let's try doing that with the Wikidata sandbox. So the sandbox on Wikidata is an item. You can always search for it in the search bar. And let's assume that we wanted to add a statement of an image. So the property would be image, and the label, sorry, the value would be an image from Wikimedia Commons, right? Because Wikidata doesn't store images locally. It uses or references images from Wikimedia Commons. So we go on Wikimedia Commons and we find the appropriate image. Let's look at a random image here. Assuming this is what we want to include as an image for our item on Wikidata. We come to the value here and then we simply paste the link. Not the link, but the name of the file. And we publish. And this gets shown as an image. Okay. Now let's go back to the query builder. So, like I mentioned, to make queries on Wikidata, you can start with the query service. So if I go to the query service, and you find the query service on any Wikidata page, you simply need to go to the menu and click on query service. Right. Let's try to filter the task that we started with. So let's do it again. We want to get a list of female politicians whose country of citizenship is Uganda. So we start by filtering Uganda. as a country. But remember, the property we want isn't just country, because country isn't usually placed on the items for humans. Country could be placed on something like uh, an administrative district in Uganda, or even the capital of Uganda, Kampala, is an item. You can add a statement country, Uganda, as a value. Here we are looking for country of citizenship. Citizenship. Okay, once you do that and you run, you get some results. Now we want to be more specific because we are looking for females. So we click on the filter again because we want to restrict our query to just females. So we click on female and the sex or gender. Now, if the property here isn't what you want, you can always change it. But here it is exactly what we wanted it to be, sex or gender, female. And of course, you can always change the value to here for male. If we run it again, we get some more specific results to females. We can go on and include a third filter and say we are looking for people who are politicians. And then we say that the property is occupation. If it's not occupation, you can always go in there and start typing occupation. You would get a suggestion, and then you can choose occupation P106. So this looks like what we want. Then you can run it now. And then you get your results, right? You can show these results in so many different ways, as just a table, or in some other dimensions. These don't make sense for our example here, but you can simply click on the show here and say type image. Once you type image, then it's going to create a new column in the results and show us images where they do exist. If there's no image, it would obviously not show you anything, right? Okay. You can download this as a JSON file. You can download this as a CSV or include it as an HTML table in your website. You can share the results to the query as, just the results, or you can share this code here with someone by clicking on the link and clicking on the share results. You can copy this and share that with someone so they can click on the link and it brings them here exactly. Now, you can also include, you can show this as simply images, as an image grid. There's two ways to do that. You can include this default view. Once you start typing default view with the hash, so default view as an image grid. And if I run it, it would show me image grid like this, I believe. It would show me as an image grid. Again, you can do this also by simply clicking on the image grid here, and you don't have to know how to do this. So this is basically how the query service works. Now, this is a very powerful tool that is not necessarily meant to write simple queries like this, but very complex queries where you would have to change the code here. So complex queries such as humans who died on a specific date on the English Wikipedia ordered by label. Now, this is very complex. I have no idea how to write this. So this is what this is meant for. Therefore, we encourage people who are beginning to not necessarily be bothered with the complexities of the query builder, but to use the query, with the query service, but to use the query builder. And the query builder is linked in the query service for your convenience at the very top here, query builder. You can also always search for it and you would find it here, query builder. Okay, let's achieve the same results as we did now using the query builder. So the property here is E27, right? Country of citizenship. You don't need to memorize these properties. You just have to start typing and you will get some suggestions and you can choose them. And the value here is Uganda. Now I don't remember the value for Uganda, so I'll just type it. Then it shows me Uganda. And I can run the query and I get some results. I can add a second condition so that we get results only for people whose gender is female. And I can run the query again. It's restricted to just female. And I can add a third condition. I can keep adding conditions, a million conditions, as much as I want. The third condition I'm adding is people's occupation. So the property always comes first. Occupation is politician, right? And then we run this query and we get some results again. Cool. Now, I want to explain some of these other things that you might have seen and might be wondering what they are. Okay, let's take the first one. I chose width. So the default would always be on the width. But if I had clicked on without, then it would give me items that have country of citizenship that is not Uganda. So without Uganda, but I want it with items that have this property, country of citizenship, that matches Uganda. I could also change this and say, okay, without Uganda, so that's another way to do this. So it gives me people whose country of citizenship is something else. So you could choose matching or without or regardless of value. And regardless of value would give you values that include Uganda and not Uganda. Right. Okay. Let's look at the references first before we look at this check mark here. Now, I could only be interested in statements that have a reference, right? You know, a lot of statements on Wikidata don't have references yet. They should have references, but yeah. So I said, okay, I don't mind if it has a reference or not. I'm still interested in this query catching that item. So I chose with and without references. This is also the default. The check mark here, let's try and explain this because this is always very confusing for a lot of people. Now, you would agree with me that someone could be a politician, right? And their occupation on Wikidata wouldn't be politician, but it could be a governor. I don't know if you have governors in Uganda, but assuming there's a governor as their occupation, if this query is run without checking this mark, they won't show up in the results because this query is looking specifically for people who have a statement that has a value that says they are a politician. But if we check this mark, we know that governors are some form of politicians. So this query would include everything that is a sub-representation of who a politician is. So it would include governors. It could include municipal chief executives who are, I don't know how the administrative divisions of Uganda is, but in Ghana we have these district chief executives who are also politicians, and is their profession. So this query would actually include them as well. Does that make sense, people? Another example could be something like a writer. Now, if I was looking for writers, right, this query would give me people who have an occupation that matches the value writer. But you know, some writers are very specific. Like there could be a columnist who writes for some newspaper, and so their occupation on Wikidata wouldn't necessarily be say that they are a writer. It would simply say a columnist. But we know that a columnist um, is a subset of a writer. We have children's books authors who are also subsets of writers. So this would include them as well. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Someone is asking, I would like to request the post. Thanks, Mohammed. What is the purpose of sharing the results, links, or downloaded with someone? Yes. So, assuming you are talking to someone in, assuming you go to talk to someone in the national level of Uganda who don't know anything about Wikidata, who don't care about the nitty-gritties of how to write a sparkle query or how to generate or how the results came about. They are simply just interested in the result. You don't want to bother them by sharing the URL with them. You can simply just share the results, and then they can click on it, and then they see, okay, a list of female politicians that are educated at the University of Uganda and are politicians, for example. And then with the downloads and the links, so Wikidata is usable on external projects. So you could be building a website and you want the results, the Sparkle query results, to show in that website. So you can actually embed the link, either you are writing Python or you are doing some HTML for your project. You can actually embed that into your external website, and then once someone goes to a website, they can see the results there for themselves. I hope that helps. And of course, you can download it as well and put it in your own CSV, Google spreadsheets, and do some manipulations with it. That is also available. So that is why the downloading feature is available for people to be able to use. Okay, let's see. Now that I've shown you how to use a query service and the query builder, I would just like to show you a couple of examples of some complex queries that would be extremely difficult to answer. Musa, you have a question, right? Okay, no. That could be extremely difficult to answer if you were to go online and try to gather information. But you can use Wikidata to just write query and get answers for statues that are measuring more than 30 meters in height across the world. So, but you can get an answer to this in a split second. Timeline of coup d'etats during the 21st century looks pretty complex. You know, with the power of Sparkle queries, you can write a query and get an answer for this in a split second. And then, of course, number of musicians in Wikidata by country. You would agree with me that if you have to go online and figure this out on your own, it would be extremely difficult unless someone had, potentially had done this work for you already. So there are now, aside the query service, there are other ways to query the data on Wikidata. I'm not going to go into the details of these, but I just want you to know about them, especially if there are coders here or tool builders here. One of them is the Wikidata dumps. So every week, 8-9 days, there's a dump of Wikidata that is made available. So anyone can download it and pass it on their own machines, use their own tools to analyze the data. There's also the Wikibase REST API, which is an application programming interface that we built that allows developers to be able to interact with the data and pull pieces of the data into their apps, in the Play Store or wherever, or on their website that they are building. And of course, on the Wikidata can also be used as templates on sister Wikimedia projects. So you can write these templates and use those templates to call some snippets of data from Wikidata and embed them on your local project, which is also a very powerful way of reusing Wikidata's data. Now, who is actually reusing Wikidata's data? First of all, the editors themselves are reusing Wikidata's data because they are linking statements and values and properties, which means they themselves are the foremost reusers of Wikidata's data. And there are we have so many companies and organizations that are using Wikidata's data. Big tech giants like the OpenStreetMap, there's the Amazon, there's Spotify, there's the Google Knowledge Graph, which is heavily dependent on Wikidata, pulls data from Wikidata and creates a nice, neat info box kind of thing. When you go on Google and you search for something, a lot of that information comes from Wikidata as well. Then, of course, we have GLAMs across the world. GLAMs are galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. They are heavily reusing Wikidata's content. We have data journalists and scientists and researchers who are very interested in reusing Wikidata's data. And if you remember, I mentioned that Wikidata's data is CC0 licensed, which means there are no restrictions on how the data can be used, which means a lot of entities out there reuse Wikidata's data, and we don't even know about it, and they don't have to tell us because the data is free. They can use it even for commercial purposes. It's all fine. So whenever we hear of a new case of a company or some organization using Wikidata's data, it really makes us happy. It would be nice if they could tell us that they're using Wikidata, but a lot of them don't bother to, and it's all fine. There was an incident, some of you might know this, about, I think it was an American politician who had their Wikidata item vandalized, and their name, I think it was their alias or something, was changed to something, some very silly word, insult. And so when this happened, no one spotted it, right? And the algorithms, the Google and the series just picked it up because they don't check, they trust us to do the checking ourselves. And so when people were searching for this person and the internet was telling them that their other name was that silly thing that someone wrote. So this just tells you that there's a lot going on that requires some due diligence from the editors, but also from the people who are reusing the data. They should, even if they can build tools to help us with to improve the data quality of the content on the Wikimedia projects in general, but if they are able to even provide some support to contributors and volunteers who can spend some more time to keep checking this content and making sure that it's accurate. This slide just shows some of the companies out there that are reusing Wikidata's data. There's Quora, Spotify, and My Society, Reddit, so on and so forth. I'll show you a couple more interesting ones. So there's Wikiflix. I'm sure some of you have seen it before. It's an interface to browse, search, and view movies in the public domain. So movies on Commons. Yeah, there are a lot of movies on Wikimedia Commons that you could watch. I think more than 1,300 movies. So you can use this tool, Wikiflix, and simply watch those movies. Of course, these are movies in the public domain, so they are not necessarily the latest movies. But if you are looking for an alternative to your Netflix subscription, you could cancel that and use Wikiflix. Douglas is asking again, is there attribution when the data is reused by these organizations? No, no attribution, because Wikidata's data is CC0 licensed, which means there are no strings attached. Use it as you wish. Totally fine. There's the KD itinerary. This app, I think, is available on the Play Store and some Linux distributions. It allows you to plan your trip. So if you are traveling to Kampala and you put in there, I'm traveling to Kampala, it will tell you, okay, in Uganda, people drive on the left side of the road, the temperature is this, and this is how you can find public transport, and so on and so forth. So this is the KD itinerary. It's a really amazing tool. So those of you who have been using TripIt, maybe some of you have, and you have to pay for TripIt, you can probably just cancel your TripIt subscription and use the KD itinerary. That's the same thing, but better. There is Scribe, which allows you to type in different languages, especially if you don't know how to speak these languages well. Scribe gives you some tips and suggestions, so you can be an English-speaking person and be typing to someone in German, and they would think, this person is probably German, but they are just using Scribe. You can download this app also. It's available on the iOS and Android. It's called Scribe. And this is also fully based on Wikidata. There is this website called Gov Directory. It aims to become this global user-friendly directory of government agencies and their online presence. So if you are looking for ways to contact the Ministry of Environment in Ethiopia, when you next visit there, you go on this website, you would get some information on that and how to actually get in touch with some government agency in some other country. And it's all based on Wikidata. And you can check it out. They have a wiki project which allows people to come together and include content about their country in this wiki project so that it would appear on this website also, so people can use it and find government agencies in Uganda. There is a similar website called CV Data, which attempts to be this go-to directory for all of NGO data. So if you are looking to be able to answer questions like, okay, what are some NGOs in Uganda that have a staff of more than 1,000 and they have a budget of 2 million and they are based in the eastern part of Uganda? These are some of the questions that CV Data is trying to make available for people. So they also have a cool wiki project you can join if you want Uganda to be represented in there and add content about NGOs from Uganda. I think this could be an entire project on its own, because I know there are so many NGOs in Africa in general. In Ghana alone, there are couple, maybe 12 maybe like 4,000 to 5,000 NGOs the last time I checked in Ghana, and there's practically no information about them on Wikidata yet. So this is something that people in Ghana could consider working on as their next project. So having said that, ensuring data quality is of utmost importance. as the goal of Wikidata is to give more people more access to more knowledge. And therefore, the data needs to fit the needs of the data consumers. It needs to be accurate so that Siri can actually tell you that the name of this politician is this and not this other vandalized string of text that someone put in there as their name. So to this respect, the Wikidata community has already developed methods and tools to enhance item quality. It's a huge ton of work to do because there's so much content on Wikidata. But there are a couple of tools that you can use to help if your goal is to improve content on Wikidata. One of them is Recoin. It's Recoin actually. I think I could even show you an example of what it looks like and show you how to enable it. Let's look for an example item here. Let's look at this item. Let's close out this entirely. Now, you can enable some of these tools when you go to your preferences settings. And in your preferences, you can go to gadget here. There are so many tools you can enable. Recoin is one of them. What Recoin does is whenever you visit an item, it shows you with some colorful indicators as to the data completeness of this item. If it's very complete, it would show green. If it's not very complete, it would show orange, which just gives you an immediate indication that, okay, you can actually add more content to this. So this is an example of an item, Abbey Road. If you install this gadget, you would begin to see this colorful indication on any item that you visit. And once you see green, it means this item looks good. You can see it's a bit whitish at the top, which means although it's very good, but you could still add some relevant items to it. Sorry, some relevant statements to it. If it's orange, then it means it's really bad. And here it's not so green. And it even gives you, some predictions. Because what it does is it tries to compare different items of the same instance and say, okay, that item has headquarters, that item has P576, that item has a subsidiary. Your item, since your item you're working on also is an instance of an institute, you would likely need to add these properties to it. So that is the kind of things that Recoin does. You should totally enable and install it. There was another tool that I had in mind to mention, but I just forgot. It would come back again. There are other tools. There's this tool, what's it called again? Yeah, there's this lookup model item tool also that exists. And what this does is when you click on it, it shows you similar items, and then you can go and glean from these items to see how you could improve your own item that you are working on. So I simply clicked on it. I can do that again if I refresh. So it says look up a model item. I click on it and it says, okay, this could be an item that you can glean from Marie Curie and use Marie Curie as a benchmark to see how you can improve your own item. There was another one. I think I would find it later. Yeah. Another tool is called Mix and Match that allows it encourages link validation and correction. And there's a plethora of tools out there. I would show you Wikidata tools. So you have Wikidata tools here. Tools that allows you to make edits, tools that allows you to work on, to visualize Wikidata's data, tools for programmers, and tools for other Wikimedia projects that are kind of related to Wikidata. So you can check this out, and I'll share it in the chat here as well. So many tools to choose from. There are also user scripts. So I'll show you an example of what a user script is. I'm looking for a user script like, yeah. Now, user scripts are also tools that you need to manually install for your user page. So you first of all need to have a user page. You can just create it with this appendix. Once you create this user page, then you get to be able to install these user scripts. And I've installed a lot of them. And one of them was lookup. Yeah, one of them was the lookup that allowed me to be able to look up similar items that resemble Robina Hoop Musica. So this is how I got that to show on this Wikidata item. I simply included this line. That is what installing it literally means, just including this line in your commons.js page, and then refresh, and you would start seeing the lookup option whenever you visit an item. I could also share my commons.js page with you, and you can take a look and see if there are some scripts in there that could be interesting for you. I tried to include, a short description for each script that I installed, just so you know what they are. You might not be interested in all of them, but you might be interested in some of them. So just take a look at it and see those ones that interest you. Yeah. Now, there are different kinds of issues when it comes to data quality, and we need to tackle them, as separate issues. And of course, for people who are looking for things to do when it comes to data quality, you could be looking out for vandalism. You could be looking out for inconsistent modeling. So where the modeling isn't following the rules of, how some particular items should be modeled. You could be looking out for ontology issues. How do we organize data? How do we organize roads in Kampala, for example? This has to go through some process of ontological thinking. You could be looking out for missing references if this is something that you are interested in doing. You could be looking out for unclassified items. So we have items that don't have an instance of, and this is something that needs to have. Every item should have an instance of, at least. I think most items should. And some items are simply just lacking data. So there are several ways that you can participate in improving the data quality on Wikidata. I want to talk next about constraint violations. So when you are editing Wikidata, and before that, I would just go back here and talk about references. I think I skipped that part. Let's look at Marie Curie item, and I'll show you one or two references. Okay. They have a given name, property, and a value Marie. So this forms one statement. And they have a qualifier which says the language of the name is French, Marie. And then there's a reference which actually proves sort of that this is true. And you can always add references by clicking on the reference here. Once you click on the reference, if it's just a URL that you have, you can simply add the reference URL. If it's you after the, you can include when this URL was retrieved, you can include where it was stated. But generally, if you simply include the reference URL, it's already a very good start. So references are easily added by simply clicking on add reference, which you would find under every statement. Okay. Having said that, we're talking now about constraint violations. So recording was of this is the AI. On Wikidata, you would come across things like these constraint violations. Please don't ignore them. For example, you would see this notification sort of thing that says this statement has some potential issues. So try to click on it. Once you click on it, it would give you some recommendations or what constraint is being violated here. So it's saying here that the values of notable work statements should be instances or subclasses of, but here it isn't. So try to always click on these small notifications to get some more insights into what constraint you might be violating. There is also this suggestion. The suggestion icon looks like a flag on Wikidata, and it provides helpful recommendations for enhancing the item. So in this case, the item isn't wrong. It's just saying, it's just suggesting ways to improve the content or the structure of the item, right? And we also, so once you click on it, this is what you see. And please don't ignore them. Again, they are always very useful. Are there any questions? If not, I'll suggest we take some break, and then after the break, we come back and look at the last part of our presentation. But Mark does have a question. Great. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Saddam, for that. Sorry. So regarding the data cleanup, for instance, you talk about making query. Assuming I want to work on items that have, what do you call it again? That have constraint valuation. How do I query those type of data?
Yes, that can also be queried using the query builder. The query service, not the query builder. I don't know how to write sparkly queries, but if this is something you are interested in, I can ask someone to get you a nice query that shows constraint violations, and you can begin to work on them if this is something that you are interested in. But yeah, it's totally possible to write a query to get all of this.
Thank you very much, Mohammed.
Welcome. Okay, so I would suggest that we take a break. We've been sitting for long, and we come back and look at the last part of our session, and hopefully we can get through it to the end. So let's come back at the top of the hour, right? All right, so see you in about 8 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Let's take a break and then we will resume in a few minutes. Thank you so much, Sada. Have to read it.
Okay. I'm back. Yes. Michael, that will be very, very helpful. Screenshots. And do share that with me as well. Okay. Now let's delve into the last part of our workshop. Now let's try and look beyond Wikidata. And I would also like us to have some discussion at some end. So, Michael, do you think it would be helpful to take the screenshots now, or should we do it at the end in case some people decide to leave? Because the large numbers would be very nice for the screenshots. Okay, we can just take it at the end, right?
I think we can take now because a few people I see some people have been dropping off, so I guess
Yeah,
we can take some now and maybe a few others
yes.
at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe people can turn on their screen for a minute so
Yeah.
we can
Sure.
have this. Awesome.
Should change the layout a bit. Okay, no problem, Shanda. You should be able to. Mohammed, are you able to first stop sharing the screen so that I see all
Okay.
of them at once? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. See. How can I change this? Because I'm seeing only a few people on my screen. I want to go to the next screen. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Okay, let me take some screenshots. This one. Okay. Two. Let me see. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I think we are good to go. Yes, thank you so much.
Nice. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'll try and share my screen again. And I'll try to close out these. And maybe just leave only the main page. Perfect. Cool. Okay. So the big picture. What else exists outside of Wikidata? Or let's look beyond Wikidata. So for something a bit not so different, is lexicographical data, which is a mouthful to always pronounce. So how did we get here? Remember, once upon a time it was just Wikipedia, and then we started having all of these other Wikimedia projects. Wikidata was one of the latest. So it came, I think, about 10 years after Wikipedia. That was in 2012. And then we had structured data on commons, which was in 2017. And then in 2018, we had lexicographical data on Wikidata. Today, currently, we have wiki functions. So a lot of things have happened in this timeline, but I'm just highlighting the structured data world, as in the things that are really central for Wikidata. Today we have wiki functions, which is a separate project on its own, which would allow people to be able to generate content in multiple languages by using functions. That's not what we're going to talk about, although the success of that project heavily depends on lexicographical data, on Wikidata. So they are kind of linked. Now, Wikidata is made up of items, as you saw, which are meant to describe concepts, and this uses statements, which includes properties and values. So this content is stored in the item's namespace, and that is why they always start with a KO123, KO something. That's the item namespace. But since Wikidata also has another namespace called the Lexims namespace, which starts with an L, and this came much later after Wikidata started. So this is a different project from items, but included in Wikidata. So until 2018, like I said, Wikidata was only describing concepts. So the concept of Ghana as a country, the concept of mountain as an entity, and now it includes the description of words, of phrases, and all of the parts of speech. And we collectively call all these descriptions of the words and the phrases and the parts of speech lexicographical data. A single lexeme page is called a lexeme, right? So lexicographical data, the whole thing, and lexeme, one single lexeme, sorry, one single entity, one single page. These parts of speech are, first of all, they are part of Wikidata, but they are in a new namespace, and they are different from items. They are called lexemes. The big difference is that items would have a KID, but lexemes would have an LID. So Q1234 lexeme, L3459, something like that. So whereas with items, we would have things like, we would have statements like species of a mammal, the taxon name, the average size of a mouse, an image of what a mouse looks like, could all be statements on an item. right? We can have lexeme, also called mouse. And the difference is, first of all, it would have an LID. It would have a lexical category. So the lexical category being either this word is a noun or a verb or an adjective or a pronoun. It would have grammatical number as forms. So, for example, is this word the plural form of the word? Is this word, what is the singular form of it? It could have, and lexemes are all required to have various senses, at least one sense. The senses are the different meanings that a word could assume. So the different ropes, if you like, that a word, or the different meanings of a word that could potentially exist. A word like mouse, the English spelling mouse, one sense of the word could be, so when I say sense, is what I'm referring to. One sense of the word could be that it means an animal. It could also mean a computer device. It could also mean an adjective. So these are three different senses of the same word. And for lexemes, you would also find translations of that word in other languages, and you would find pronunciation audios as statements for those lexemes. So all of these exist on a lexeme. I'll show you what a lexeme looks like in a second. But before that, I'll just show you the screenshot first. So in this screenshot, what you are looking at, you can see that it starts with a lexeme L1 something. It has a language because every lexeme should have a language. The lexeme could be in Luganda, it could be in English. So the lexeme here, the language is English. It would have a lexical category, which is also required when creating a lexeme. So the lexical category, like I said earlier, is the word a noun? Is it a preposition? Is it an adjective? Things like that. And it would also have statements, but of a different kind. So in this example, we also have the instance of P31, but it's telling us that this is a count now. So specifying what kind of a lexical category it is. We have, described by source, which means that this is described by some other catalog in the Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, where you can go there and read about mouse as a word. It also has what is called usage example statement. So how this word is used in a typical English sentence. So in this case, when a mouse laughs at the cat, there's a hole nearby. That's one way that this word could be used. So yeah, these are lexemes. And what is the big deal? Why do lexemes matter? First of all, lexemes are structured data. So, which means both machines and humans can read and parse it. Structured data, as you know, is a language of algorithms and tools, which means researchers, dictionaries, and things like that can actually tap into this data and transform it into some meaningful insight. Also, this data could be used to support, Wiktionary and other Wikimedia projects. Other use cases for lexemes could be, aside from building dictionaries, they could be used for translation tools, especially for underserved languages that don't have any yet. Other use cases could be word annotation and typing keyboards. Remember the scribe example that I showed you, where you could install the app to allow you to type in languages that you are not very comfortable in. That depends heavily on lexicographical data. Because of the existence of this data, researchers could use this kind of data for sentiment analysis. Example, part of speech tagging, name entity recognition, And of course, Abstract Wikipedia is coming, which is going to be this project that allows people to write entire articles, even in languages that they don't know, because those contents, that content would be generated from these abstract functions that people are going to start creating. It was recently deployed onto Tagbani Wikipedia, and we are currently, seeing how it's going to be used and could be used to support other small language Wikipedias. You can reach out to the team at the foundation that are working on the abstract Wikipedia to ask them if they could deploy it to your local language as well, and you can also test it out. So Wikidata has an international community, and the international aspect of the project makes it a truly global collaboration. So many languages from all over the world are going to get documented and connected with each other, with the potential that Lexims have. So if Lexims really take off, and they have taken off, because it's been, I think, about 8 years now, it's going to be really, really helpful for small languages that are trying to create a representation on the internet, that are trying to come online. This could be one point that those languages could use to start from, or to start with, by contributing to Lexims, contributing their language as Lexims in Wikidata. Let's look at the example again. The example about the mouse. Where is it again? I think it's here. And I would show you how it looks. So first of all, to find Lexims, sorry, I need to turn to my little boss. Bye bye. Bye bye. Sorry. One way to find Lexims is to first prefix what you are searching for in the search bar here. So here I'm searching for mouse. Because it's a Lexim, I would always start with an L and a colon and type mouse. And I would find mouse as a noun, L119. And as I was showing you, we have the lexical category, we have the usage examples, we even have identifiers like we have on Wikidata items. But most importantly, we have senses. And each lexeme needs to have a sense so that we can know what this lexeme is about, right? So this lexeme has S1, sense 1, and the first sense is saying we are referring to this rodent. And there are translations of, not translations per se, but these are the glosses in different languages, so that people who don't know English can easily identify what the translation here to see what this is all about. And each sense would have its own statement. So it would have an image, item for the sense, linking it to the Wikidata item. It would have translations. It could have so many more statements. That is, these statements are the statement that correspond to the sense, mouse as a rodent. Now, the second sense for mouse is a computer input device. So that's why it says here S2. And then for this sense also, it shows the mouse, it shows a link to the Wikidata item for mouse, translations, and so on and so forth. Now, aside from the senses, the other important thing is that Lexims needs to have forms, because words can take different forms. So this word can take a singular form in a sentence. So you're going to have F1 as the first form for this word, the singular form of it. You're going to have F2 as the plural form of this word, the genitive case, the plural. I think this is a repetition of the first one. This needs to be deleted. So these are the forms, and new forms can always be added. So the forms are the different ways that a word can be represented in a sentence, because words can assume different forms. And then the senses are the different understandings of what the word means in the language. Okay, so these are the two big things that needs to exist on any lexeme. And yeah, it's really important that lexemes are covered in a small language that doesn't have a good representation on the internet yet. This is one way to actually, like a shortcut to get your language become digitalized on the internet. I just want to check the state of the current lexemes that we have on Wikidata, see where we are. I haven't checked this in a while. So this query is able to tell us, Sharon, yeah, thanks for coming. This query is able to tell us the current state of lexemes in various languages, as in lexemes that exist in English, lexemes that exist in French, lexemes that exist in various languages. So let's run this and see what we have. It's still running. Okay. So this bubble chart shows that German has a huge number of lexemes, 23,000, actually 239,000. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just fix my daughter's issue. Okay. Oops. Okay. She wants to ride her bike. If you look here, there are not a lot of languages from Africa. Let's look at the table itself and view this as the table. We have German, Swedish. The first African language I see here is Tapani, which has 11,000 lexemes. Yes, there's Egyptian also. That is great. There is, yeah, I think these are the only two languages that make it so far. There's Fula, which is amazing. Igbo is doing pretty well. And let's see how that is catching up. So there's still a lot to be done around lexemes. Don't about it, Maya. No. Mala meeting, okay? Jamama son, cannot. Okay. Yes. Now she made me forget what I was saying. I wanted to also check the current state of lexemes in okay. In Uganda. I wrote a query with the help of Lucas, of course. Bye-bye. Hello. There you are. Hello.
Just write queries.
No, I need to distract her. Let us see Mama Kankan, okay? Okay, I'm back. Let's look at the current state of lexemes in Uganda. I see the number of lexemes in Uganda 10. Then there's Kinyarwanda, and there's Acholi and Madi. So these are the only languages in Uganda now that have some lexemes in it. Let me just see if I can find one of the lexemes, because I remember, Geoffrey, you did some lexemes some time ago. Do you remember any of them that I can search for? Otherwise, I could also just search for your contributions around, if you don't mind, that is.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't mind. I can't remember the words I used.
Yeah, let me just search for the. Can you type your username in the chat for me?
Yeah. Let me drop it in the chat. Yeah. Katerega 1.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, got it. Then we are looking for lexemes, so it doesn't give us everything. And I think it was around the wiki in Daba at in Morocco, right? That was in
correct.
2019. No, 2023.
2023, yeah.
Around November. Okay, let's look at this. To this. Let's see. There you go. Okay. So Geoffrey did some lexemes. Amazing. Nice. Let's look at one of them. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's totally.
So this is a lexeme in Luganda. As you can see, the language is correctly represented. It's a verb, and it means to eat. So as someone who doesn't know Luganda, I can easily use the gloss, the English gloss here, to figure out that this means to eat. And there's a statement here, predicate for eaten. You could also add an image here that shows someone eating, if there is an image. I only see a monkey eating, see human eating. Okay, there's nothing there, but if there is, you could add it. And then the other important, so this word "ia" could mean something else aside from to eat. If that is the case, then you would add a new sense to describe this new meaning of the word "ia." For now, it's just one sense, which is already good enough. Then we have the form, which would be the different representations of this word "ia." So the singular form is this, the plural form is this. You could add things like the pronunciation audio for "ia." You could add the dialects in case there are different dialects of Luganda. You could add that also here, and so on and so forth. Yeah, tambula. This is a noun, so this is to walk, and there's a past tense of it, and there's okay. So this would go into the verb of tambula. So we would need to create a new lexeme as a verb. Because I see the descriptions here actually talking about past tense and present. So it has to do with that lexeme that talks about tambula as a verb. So it will, ideally there will be two lexemes, one for the noun and then one for the verb. And there are two forms, so you could just move those forms there. So lexemes are not difficult, as you can see here. It's just about knowing the language, even if it's a very basic understanding of the language, and adding senses. These census, according to the team working at the foundation, is what is going to make abstract Wikipedia actually work. So it's important to have census for every lexeme that you create, so they can actually connect the functions to it. Yeah, and lexemes are pretty interesting. It can also mean, oh, I missed the chat here. It's actually Leah. Ah, Lya. Okay, okay. And yes, Carl Michael, the Uganda, which will have some text correction. Perfect. Okay, that was on lexemes. We have 15 minutes left. I want to talk about something else. But before that, I just want to share this query with you in case you are interested. So this query can actually show you the lexemes that exist without having to look at Geoffrey's user contributions. So I can just share a URL to the query here for people interested, and you can go back and work on the list. All right. Now for something interesting also is the Wikibase ecosystem. When Wikidata, so when the concept of building Wikidata came up, the team, the software development team at Wikimedia Deutschland needed to come up with a software to be able to handle this Wikidata concept. And so they built a software that they called Wikibase. And then Wikidata was then enabled on Wikibase, and it started growing to where it is now. So the software infrastructure upon which Wikidata sits is called Wikibase. And after some years, we saw a number of GLAMs particularly come to us and say, okay, this looks like a very interesting database, knowledge base, to be more specific. Could we have a system like this in our own library so that we can use it to manage our content? And that is where the idea of opening up the software came to be. And Wikimedia Deutschland made it possible. And the first institution to actually install Wikibase as a tool for their institution was the National Library of Germany, the German National Library, the GND. So they are actually using Wikibase to power all of the libraries in Germany, using it to organize and categorize their stuff, which is really great. Then we saw other entities coming up. There's the EU Commission is also using Wikibase to manage their data, which is awesome. There is the French National Library that is also using Wikibase very heavily, although not entirely as the Germans are doing now. There is the Ministry of Culture in Luxembourg. So not just GLAMs, but also now governments are actually installing Wikibase and using it to organize their content. There is the Technical Library of Hanover, which is one of the more specific libraries in Germany, but not under the government. There's FactGrid, which is a research institution at the University of Erfurt. There is enslaved.org, which is a website that is used to organize, structured data about enslaved people. Oftentimes we know a lot about who these enslavers are, but we hardly know much about the actual people that were enslaved. So this Wikibase is entirely concentrated on describing and structuring the data around, the slaves themselves. It's called enslaved.org. Yeah, so that is Wikibase. It is really ideal for content that is not entirely suitable for Wikidata. Let's say you want to do your own thing. You are not really interested in putting your structured data on Wikidata. This would be very suitable for your project. Wikibase is out there, it's in the open, it's flexible. Anyone who has the technical experience to install it on their own server can simply do that. Once you have that, you can create your own properties and items and do your own thing, and it is just for you. Now, having said that, installing Wikibase is not trivial. It's extremely complicated. And as a result, Wikimedia Deutschland realized, okay, not everyone has the capacity to even host their own Wikibase. So let's create this Wikibase in the cloud, so to speak, so that people can simply just sign up and then they have a Wikibase for themselves. Wikimedia Deutschland is hosting it for free. The only requirement is that it has to be in the open also. You know, for installing Wikibase on your own, you can, it's just a closed platform. You can decide not to connect it with Wikidata and no one would bother you. The only difference with Wikibase Cloud is that because we are interested in creating an LOD, a linked open data network, we require that the Wikibase that you create needs to be open so that people can benefit from it as well. So all it takes is to simply sign up for Wikibase. Just sign up and you can have your own instance to experiment, to do a lot of things. There are a couple of, there are hundreds, I think there are close to 1,000 Wikibases out there now. These are all on the Wikibase cloud. So you can check it out and just see what other people are doing. There was one that I wanted to show you. Where is it again? Yeah, there's a Wikibase that Wikimedia Sweden created. And the whole idea behind this metabase, so this on the Wikibase cloud, you can really customize it to suit your needs, is that they want to use this Wikibase to organize structured data around Wikimedia conferences and events that exist. So I think they got a lot of funding for this and they are currently actively working on it. You, as a community, can also say, okay, you want to have a Wikibase to do something like one thing that is really missing that could be there that you might be interested in taking on is a Wikibase for conference participants. It would be like a very huge service to the Wikidata, the Wikimedia community, because not all the conference participants are notable enough to be on Wikidata, right? But if there's a separate wiki base, you can put whoever and whatever you want on. So, you can use this to manage all the people who are speaking at Wikimedia, the people who are attending Wiki Indaba, and get the Wikimedia community to rally around and use that as their main place for including conference participants' information. That could be one project that you could look at. You could use Wikibase to do your own thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be some formal project. For example, I have a Wikibase that I use to sort of organize my genealogy. So I'm trying to see who my ancestors are and who I'm related to. And this is my own Wikibase. You can sign up and use it to do whatever you want. I could share a link with you if you want to check it out some more. So this is what Wikibase actually is. In case you had never tried it, I would really encourage you to check it out and see what you could do with it, especially for communities in Africa where we still face a lot of challenges with the fact that our contents, our cultural content, for example, are not on the internet, so it's hard to challenge deletions on Wikidata. But you can just have your own Wikibase that you use to organize your own thing because it really belongs to you. It's like that. So ultimately, and I'll finish with this so we have some time for questions. The goal of making Wikibase as a software that is out there in the open is to create a future, is to create this Wikibase ecosystem whereby self-hosted Wikibases are interconnected with each other. So in this slide, as you are looking at, you can see some Wikibases decided not to connect back to Wikidata, and it's totally fine. Some Wikibases have decided to connect to Wikidata. And ultimately, if we have this linked open data web, people would be able to query. They can use, they can be on their Wikibase. For example, the one at the very top right, write a query, a federated query that can pull data from Wikidata, can pull data from the Metabase, can pull data from the German National Library, can pull data from any of these Wikibases so far as they have decided to connect back to Wikidata. And that is the ultimate vision of this Wikibase ecosystem that we are trying to create. Yes. I saw a hand up. Who was it again? Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Sadat. It was actually about the Wikibase, the one that you created, the cloud one that you created. It's very interesting to maybe use it to trace the ancestry for most of the us Africans, especially since we are so into glam and have different cultures that might interlink. You might realize I also noticed that there are also images that come along.
Yeah.
So probably these are on commons or maybe embedded into Wikibase examples. I've not used it a lot, but to be something that we would be interested or glad to work on as a community.
Yes, that would be really awesome. One other use case that just came to mind is, so we have a lot of kingdoms and chiefs in our communities in Africa. One use case could be to use this to organize the lineage of the rulers of some particular kingdom to see, okay, who are they connected with, their ancestry, and create all this information in a Wikibase and use Sparkle to visualize it and see who how things are connected. That would be really cool. Yeah. And the images on your Wikibase currently they can only be connected. They can only be referenced from Wikimedia Commons, just like on Wikidata. But we are coming up with a feature that would allow people to store images locally on Wikibase, which means you would be excused from all the complexities and the strict restrictions that exist in Commons. You can just put your local image on your own Wikibase, regardless of whatever it is, and no one really cares. Yeah. Yeah. It's called work like local.
Yeah, it actually exists, Mohammed. Geoffrey knows it very well. Like in Luganda, especially the Luganda Wikipedia community team, and the different cultures, they have that lineage, that structure. In Luganda, it's Tambulango Muganda, and then in the translation to English, work like a local. So you talk about your mother, your your father and mother, your grandfather and your like your grannies, your until the little dead grannies, something like that.
Okay, interesting. I thought that the link I shared is probably not working. I will just create a short link in a second and share that instead. Hope this one works. That's cool. Yeah, what you said, Douglas. Nice. So, given this whirlwind introduction to Wikidata, it's a lot to take in, and we we are open to. So, you just talk among yourselves and see if there are any specific areas in this workshop that you'd like to focus on at some point. Maybe you want to learn how to do Sparkle. We have a Sparkle expert that I can bring on to help you, to run a workshop. Maybe you want to learn how to use some bulk editing tools like quick statement. We could organize a workshop, then I can show you how to do that. Maybe you want to learn how to do like Sims proper, because these are like really broad topics that you need to really go in depth to get a full grasp. But the goal of what we just spent 3 hours doing is to give you this big overview of what exists, what you can potentially do with Wikidata, with Lexims, with Wikibases. And if you are interested and you come back to us, we're always arms open to organize specific sessions. Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that. Are there any questions, guys? You can paste them in the chat or unmute and ask. Yes, Geoffrey.
No, just responding to Mohammed's last comment that yeah, we will have a debrief as a team and see what we need to prioritize from what you have shared. Then we'll get back to you. We'll definitely need another workshop on one of the things that is of much interest to to the team here. But thank you so much. This was a lot. It took us really through everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. And
Brian has a hand.
Baluka Brian. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sadat. It has been a very insightful session. I've learned along the way, though somehow, somewhere, I dropped off and I joined another meeting.
Yeah, Alice has joined.
So I don't know whether you covered this, but I think I have a 2-in-1 question. Sometimes it is called a pregnant question. So one is, you find we have our local languages. And I think as far as I know, the Wikimedia Foundation supports up to like 330 plus languages. But you find that in Uganda, we have the Luganda Wikipedia. So like it is one of the languages that is representing us. So my question is, if I want to say contribute in Luamba, that is a language in Bundibujo. So is there a language pool where I can pull say that Luamba is supported on Wikidata, or it is strictly supporting the languages that are supported by the Wikimedia Foundation? Then secondly, if I want the language, say I want to be contributing in English, Luganda, Runyankore, and Lukonjo or Konzo. So how can I make them the default languages on top so that I don't see Arabic, I don't see something like that? So that's my question.
Yeah, those are really good questions. The first one has to do with supported languages. So currently, Wikidata supports just about 200 languages or so. And you might be asking, yeah, rightly so, why not your language? Because your language doesn't exist yet. Because it takes some effort to maintain the existence of a large number of languages on Wikidata. They are only included when people need them. So one way that this would have done was to simply add all the 7,000 languages in the world and wait for people to use them. But that would also have some strain on our infrastructure. So rather, we wait if there's a community member who is interested in including their language on Wikidata, then we go ahead and we add it. And all that you need to do is simply to ask me. I'm the person that you ask. And I would create a ticket and escalate it to Lydia, who is a product manager, and the engineers would add it. So yeah. The second one has to do with the default languages. I think I could just show you how to do that quickly. I promise this will take a lot of time. So you can simply change the language here. Change this to Italian, if that is what you speak. Then the interface and the labels change to Italian. But then you would have to continuously be doing this, right? Every time you visit a page. So one way to force Wikidata to give you some specific languages in your term box so that you can deal with just those languages are given priority, is to include what we call a Babel box in, let's change this back to English because I don't know a word in Italian. English. Is to include a Babel box in your user page. And the Babel box simply forces Wikidata to prioritize these languages for you. And the way to include a Babel box, I can show you in the edit source, is this template where I list my languages and the level at which I know these languages. So if you're interested, I can just share a link to my user page. You can go in, copy the code there, and then change it to the languages that you speak. So you need to include the Babel box in your user page. Yep.
Requesting you to go through the comments. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. Yeah, I did miss a lot. Yes, I'll share the slides. Can we use Zoom next time and record a session for us to catch up? Absolutely. Although I don't have a Zoom subscription, but if you do, we could use that.
Yes.
Okay. And it's very interesting your last name because your last name is the name of a place that I come from in Ghana. It's called Tamale.
I know that.
Okay. Samson, yes, I will share the presentation. Yes, please do share the slides with your community. We'll take one more screenshot. Okay, yes, that would be good. So I can stop sharing and Michael can arrange the screenshots. Cool. Can other communities use Wikidata for a workshop? For example, the OSM community. So there's a strong connection between the OSM community and Wikidata already. there's a statement that goes from Wikidata to OSM. I think it's called the OSM something ID. Maybe Geoffrey would know. um, yeah, and there are statements that connect back from the OSM items to Wikidata again, but I don't know what that statement, what that property is, or both exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we can add Wikidata items to OpenStreetMap objects, and also it's the same. You can also add an OpenStreetMap ID on a Wikidata item. Yes.
Okay, cool. Any more questions, or should we take the picture?
Geoffrey, can you see all the screens?
Yeah, I can.
Please help.
I can see everyone. So
Take
let me
example
take
ready so we
one.
can retake. Just yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you take the picture, one thing I forgot to mention is the Wikidata Con that would be coming in October, November, and we're going to open up scholarship applications for communities to do something. I would really be happy if your community requests for a scholarship to do something. That would be great. Could be, just cutting cake or, dancing. Or it doesn't necessarily need to be sitting down and editing. So,
Yeah, we did something fun last year. It was organized by Michael, so we'd be happy to organize something again this year. So yeah, I'm taking the photo 1, 2, 3. Okay, photo done. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sadam.
Okay, folks. Thank you. And
we'll surely get back to you to arrange more sessions. It may not be one session. I am sure of that. We might have a series of sessions so that we get the best out of these trainings. Yeah.
all right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Enjoy the rest
Lovely
of the
evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Likewise, bye bye. Thank you for the session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice weekend.
Geoffrey, I think we need to organize a session on Wikidata Project Uganda.
Yeah, like
Mike,
an
I don't
editor
know
for
where you're hiding.
Yeah, for sure. We need to organize. I think Michael can pull a list of 156 lakes of Uganda. From Uganda. I think we shall write that query and see how it goes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Think Media. What's your name? We need people's names for the Internet Data Refund, but we don't have your name. It's Sync Media.
I'm Nabunja Letitia.
Okay, Nabunje Letitia. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.